Okay, so in this lecture, by now, we've already learned how to create a few different things. We learned how to create elbows. We've learned how to create some flanges. We're getting used to working in different views and using and creating all these geometries and then turning them into 3D solids, subtracting them, unioning them. We're getting used to going back and forth between manufacturer drawings and our AutoCAD environment. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up a little bit. Don't worry, I'm not going to be leaving everything out. I'm going to be calling all of my shots key per key, click per click, but I do want to pick up the pace a little bit. So this time we're going to look at a pretty common fitting, one of our most used things that we're going to be designing with. That's going to be a T. Most of you probably already know what a T is. So let's get started. Let's take a look at how we can create a T in AutoCAD. So the first dimension that we need is this M dimension, because the first thing I want to do is I want to create this tube that's going across from left to right. So that's going to start with a circle of the diameter M. So M for a 1 inch, that comes up to 1 and 23/32. So 23 over 32, that's going to be 1.71875. So let's start from a right perspective, and I'm going to go ahead and create a circle with a diameter of 1.71875. So there, I've got that diameter circle. I can go ahead and measure, double check, and make sure I put that in right, 1.718, and it's rounding it up to 8. That's perfect. So let's go back to a top view, and now we want to go ahead and make an extrusion of that circle. So this is what a circle looks like from the top. It looks like a flat line, and let's get a dimension for that extrusion. So we're going to go back to our drawing, and we want to extend that or extrude that along this L dimension. That's the end-to-end length of this T. So L dimension for a 1 inch T is 3 and 31/32. So let's go ahead and get our 31/32. That's going to be 3.96875. So let's select and extrude 3.96875. So now we've got that first tube. Let's go ahead and create that second tube, that piece that needs to be coming out the top of this T. So we already know that's going to be the same diameter of this. Let's double check and make sure it doesn't give us any other dimensions for that top. It doesn't, so we can assume it's going to be exactly the same. I'm just going to take the cylinder I've already got, copy it over here, and then I'm going to rotate that copy a solid 90 degrees. And then let's go ahead and move this thing. So I'm going to move it from an extension of this quadrant down to the center here. And now we need to see what the dimension is going to be from the center of this bottom tube to the top of this tube up here. So let's check back on our drawing, and we see that that's going to be our H1 dimension, which goes from the center line of the horizontal tube to the top face of the vertical tube. So H1, oh, that's nice. That's a nice, easy 2 inches. So that's easy to put in. We're going to go ahead and make that. I'm going to create a construction line here from the extension of this quadrant, and it's going to go up 2 inches. So that's where we need to cut off this tube. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and use slice. So I clicked on slice, then I'm going to click on this tube, hit enter, and then I'm going to go ahead and click on this first point here. I'm going to click on my second point here, and then I'm going to click on this side of this cylinder because that's the one I want to keep. And just like that, I've got it. So now I know I need to put this in the center of this horizontal tube. To do that, I'm just going to go ahead and create a line down here below it that goes from an extension of the bottom quadrants. That's going to give me a midpoint that I can dress to. So now I can move this vertical tube from an extension of the quadrant to an extension of the midpoint. right there. I can delete my two little lines that I drew as helpers, and whenever I look at this from a southwest perspective, you can see now I've got everything lined up correctly. This thing's starting to look like a T. So I've got the basic body of this thing done. Let me go ahead and come over here and click on Union, select that all, and hit Enter. And then just as a double check, I'm going to go ahead and go into Visual Styles Hidden, and look at that. That looks like a T. So let me go back to my 2D wireframe view, and then go back to the top. Now I need to create some inner geometry. So why don't we go back to the drawing, and you see I've got 3 different sockets, and of course everything in the center is hollowed out. But again, we don't want to see those lines all the time, so I'm not going to model this part in here that's hollowed out. I am just going to model these 3 sockets, where it comes in, and it's just going to kind of be a stop after that. So let's see what we got for these socket depths. We already know what the size is going to be. It's going to be the outer diameter of a 1-inch pipe, because that's what plugs into a fitting, obviously. So then the question is, what's the socket depth? And we actually have 2 different dimensions for socket depths. So let's focus on this first one down here. We've got this G dimension that goes from the bottom of the socket to the center. And that G dimension is 27/32. So the first thing that we want to do, we want to bring in one of those construction cylinders from the pipe, that outer diameter cylinder. So let's go ahead and open up our pipe drawing again. And we're going to take that larger cylinder from our 1-inch pipe, and we're going to copy that, come back into our drawing, and we're going to paste that anywhere we want. Let's put it right there. Then I'm going to go back to a front view, and I'm going to go ahead and rotate this 90 degrees so that I've got it in the orientation that I need it. And I know I'm going to need one more of these in this perspective, so I'm going to create another copy over here. Then let's go back to the top view, because before we subtract these out, we know we're going to need one more for the top. So let's copy it once more, and then let's rotate that one another 90 degrees. So now we've got all 3 of our cylinders that we're going to be subtracting out of our T. And now we can go back and look at that G dimension. I'm going to go ahead and create myself down here a nice little line, just like I had before. That's going to help me find a center for that. And now let's go back and see what that dimension actually was. 27/32. So 27 divided by 32, and that's going to be 0.84375. So back into AutoCAD, we're going to draw another line from the center of this, 0.84375 to the left, and then we can draw another one to the right, 0.84375. So now we've got a line that we can dress to for our 2 socket depths. So let's go ahead and get these 2 end cylinders subtracted out. First, we're going to go back into an isometric view so that we can see what we're working with. And then I'm going to move these cylinders from this center point to the center point of my end tube. 1 and then 2. So now that I've got those lined up correctly, in fact, while I'm here, I might as well go ahead and set this one up and get ready to knock it out next. Let's go back to our top view and actually do our operations. So we're going to first move this one. We're going to take an extension of the quadrant, and we're going to move down to an extension of that end point. We're going to do the same thing for this one reflexively. So come down to that extension and come down to the extension of that end point. Now we've got those 2 where they need to be. Let's see what we've got for the dimension for this top one, and we can knock them all out together. So let's go back into our drawing, and we see that that dimension is G1. So G1, look at that, it's actually the same as our G dimension, and we've already got the lines created to work with on that, so great. Let's go ahead and take one of these lines and move it over here. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees, and then I'm going to move this from the end point to this center quadrant. So that's giving me something to dress to. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this cylinder down the appropriate distance. So I'm going to take that extension and I'm going to move it down to that extension. I can delete all of my construction lines at this point because I'm done with them. And now all I have to do is subtract. So let's come over here to the right, select subtract, select our T, hit enter, select our 3 cylinders, hit enter, and voila, we've got a T.